I wanted to go over the reflexes and highlight the reflexes and talk about them just briefly to help you in your learning and understanding. So a moral reflex is that reflex that happens when the baby is held and your hands, for example, and kind of close to your body, if we look at the picture here, and if that child feels release of your hand and like it's going to be dropped, the arms go straight out, and oftentimes the head extends as well. Palms are up, thumb is flexed. It is a normal reflex, and it gets what it gets replaced by is the startle reflex. So let's say you are walking along and you're lost in thought. Someone goes behind you and goes, "Hey, Patty," and you just jump. And your arms may go like extend as well, but so this reflex gets integrated into what we call the adult startle reflex. And when does that happen? It varies. If we see, a moral reflex persisting, going into, several years, then that could be considered not normal. But more importantly, we know that early on in life, especially, it's considered a normal reflex. The next reflex is the rooting reflex. I think you all kind of know that one. The ATNR is a normal reflex that is fully integrated at 6 months, which means after 6 months you should not see an ATNR. I think this picture is quite good of this little one with that arm extended in the direction of his head, and then the other arm being flexed at the elbow, and the fingers flexed as well. There is another image I have. This is kind of sweet. You can just see the normal nature of this in little babies. It starts in utero and often seen within, it says, the first 3 months of life, but it persists beyond 6 months. You can see as a problem. Now, where this persistence is a problem is that the child is just not able to explore using their hand, looking at the hand, as far as integrating the hand into feeding, integrating the hand into play when this reflex persists. The next reflex to look at is the positive support reflex. This is where people put the little baby on their ball of their feet and say, "Oh, look, they're getting ready to walk. They're getting ready to walk." And no, they're not. It's the positive support reflex, which is normal. But if it persists long term, what happens with long-term persistence, it can get in the way of acquiring other skills such as standing and walking. The next reflex I talk about is the STNR. This is one that emerges around 6 to 9 months. And if it persists, we're talking about persistence being, going well beyond, 30 years of age of 5. This can have a negative impact on a child's learning, because you can imagine, a child sitting in a desk when the head's extended and their arms kind of go into that extended position, how that's going to interfere with being able to pay attention to class. When the legs are flexed, it's kind of like that wrapping around the desk. It can affect posture. Persistence can certainly cause pain in the spine as well. And you can see where when the head's extended, the arms go into this position too, and the trunk or the lower extremities flex, it can interfere with attainment of other skills such as swimming. So we're going to go on to the next page where we're going to look at another reflex at the tonic-labyrinthine reflex. So this is different than the STNR. It's different because when the head is extended, the lower extremities extend. Whereas as the STNR, when the head extends, the lower extremities were flexing. So that's how you can tell these two apart. So that's integration is at 6 months. And if it goes beyond 6 months, that's considered not normal attainment. You can see that if a child is flexing his head and going into that flexion of lower extremities as well as elbow flexion, now that can really interfere with the ability to crawl and then to go through that normal development of getting into quadruped or even getting into kind of that later stage of being in prone, where you do want to see that crawling happen with some symmetry of lower extremities flexing and extending as well as the upper extremities pre-quadruped. So this is a reflex that should be fully integrated or gone beyond 6 months. So that gives you a little overview of the reflexes. There are others, but these are the main ones I want you to know at this stage. And I think the images and these additional resources that are provided should help you quite a bit in understanding the importance of these reflexes being present, but also the barriers that can happen as far as development if these reflexes do not get fully integrated or if they persist beyond a certain time frame.